it's been an enlightening morning, and it's only about to get better because rumor has it the head counselor of ASU has just entered the camp premises, and that is our president, Michael Crow. He will be kicking us off at Learning Human today. We're so excited to welcome you all. I just want to say, from near and far, wherever you're tuning in from, we hope that you have so much fun this week in between all the learning and meeting of new people that you're going to be doing. I also want to thank Workday very much for kicking us off with this opening session today and organizing a response panel. So we're really excited to hear from our panelists here in a minute. But before we do, to set the tone for the whole camp experience at Learning Human, I want to introduce one of the most meaningful learning humans in the lives of the ASU community and beyond, and that's President Michael Crow. And President Crow, take it away.
Thank you, Samantha. Nice to see everybody. I apologize, my lighting is not very good here, so I'll just be the shadow coming in from the LearningMan backdrop. But what I wanted to do today was to spend just a little bit of time talking about this bigger issue of how do we shape a more equitable future for learning. And to do that, you have to understand how little progress we have made given the challenge that is ahead of us. And also to all of you, you have to understand the importance of the role that you all are playing. You are the enablers, the empowerers, the projectors, the connectors. You are all of those things together in terms of where we're going, in terms of developing these more manageable and more equitable outcomes in terms of learning. So essentially, I would like to argue from the outset that we are only marginally equitable right now. We remain a society still driven by a strange phenomenon in learning, and that is that it's for the few, the smart, the gifted, particularly as learning accelerates, as learning becomes more complicated, as fields of subject and fields of analysis become more complex or what have you, that we've done a beginner's job, not yet a full equitable job of creating an learning environment that's really powerfully available for everybody. And so let me give you some sense of the fact that in my mind we're in the part of the fourth phase past the Stone Age, and I'll walk you through what Stone Age means in this particular case. We have to understand that the Stone Age was this moment in time thousands of years ago when we went from beating things with rocks to constructing metal. And we thought, voila, that somehow we were all the more powerful. And that metal then ultimately led to the technologies that, we're communicating with right now and was foundational to all things. The second phase was Plato himself and the group of scholars, Greek philosopher scholars that were around Plato about 2,400 years ago. And I'm going to come back to Plato. The third phase took another 2,000 years, which was the beginning of the age of Enlightenment, which we're still in at the moment. And this historical context is really, really important. This age of Enlightenment in the last 400 or 500 years has been the most powerful transformation of our species ever. The things that we've been able to do, the achievements we've been able to make, the medical progress, the technological progress, the social progress, the emergence of democracies, the emergence of all of the things that we largely take for granted came in this third phase of our evolution. And then now we're in the very, very early stages of the fourth phase. And you all and us at the university and in the learning enterprises and in the technology enterprises devoted to learning, we are the enablers of the fourth phase, the cumulative forces of impact for the fourth phase. So 4 phases. Movement out of rocks to metals, Plato and his ideas, the age of Enlightenment, and the new technology era that we're in the very early stages of. Those technologies that we all are connected to and that we're using right now and that we're evolving and developing, they are in fact the first means by which humans will have to actually educate everyone. to make education more equitable, to make learning more equitable, to make those outcomes more equitable. So the second point, and this will shock some of you, is that the second phase really got us off to a terrible start. So 2,400 years ago, Plato, for all of his innate brilliance, all of his intuitive insights, he nearly ruined us, and we're still suffering from his ruination, in spite of him being one of the most intelligent, capable, communicative, enabled humans that's ever walked the planet. He created a hierarchy, a social hierarchy for learning. He said there were three types of people, and I'll put this in common sense English. He said there were philosopher kings like himself, who were just plain smarter than everyone else, who were elite thinkers, who had the capacity to conceptualize ideas beyond anything that any human could normally conceptualize. And he called that small set of people philosopher kings. There were the guardians, those like us, smart, capable, but not superpower philosopher kings who could make things work, who could build technologies, who could teach, who could connect, who could design things and build things and make things. And then there were the, lacking a better term, the artisans. What he really meant was call them the peasants, the proletariat, depending on your particular political views. And these people he thought were the vast, huge majority of the population, and he felt that they were not educable. They were basically people driven by a base human impulse. And so what we have now, this is without a doubt, we have universities organized on that model. There are the professors, those that can be with the professors, and everyone else. Let's build these universities as walled, moated, middle-age castles or fortresses. Let's make learning and learning outcomes hierarchical. Let's derive from these hierarchies social status. Let's start granting social status from these hierarchies. Let's make all these things work. And so Plato, for all of his brilliance, may not know that he actually laid down then in some ways, a very socially hierarchical learning system that only a few could have ultimately access to. Now, the evolution of this learning system then, and this will be perhaps a little bit too much for your camp mode, for those of you that just got out of your sleeping bags. It's kind of early to be sitting around the campfire, drinking your hot chocolate or eating your oatmeal, enjoy them. They're trying to get in with your oatmeal. It's hard to think about the learning being flawed from 2,400 years ago by a person that we all hold to be a somewhat demigod-like creature, Plato. But nonetheless, this is what happens. And so as learning evolved in the last 2,400 years, and I really want you to think about this, think about where we went from 2,400 years ago to now. Learning was for the few. It was largely anti-democratic. The tools of learning were largely anti-democratic. Learning was held to just a few people. Learning was limited. There were lots of people that didn't want people to learn how to read. They didn't want women to be educated. They didn't want people to be educated who were not of a certain social group or a certain social class. In the entire country that used to be called England, which is now a part of the United Kingdom, for 800 years or so, give or take, there were only two universities, Oxford and Cambridge. That's it. It wasn't until the 19th century that anything else in England itself of any significance was built or developed. This notion of elitist access to colleges for just a few, only a limited number of seats, only for the most brilliant, is all derivative of this notion of the evolution of learning being for the few. Along the way, we made some changes, but that was only because we needed to make those changes to build a capable workforce for the industrial era. Now, in the last 500 years, and this goes to the third phase, we've lived in what Steven Pinker would call the great thinker out of Harvard, the last 400 or 500 years of an unbelievable enlightenment. We've been moving at light speed. What you think of as chemistry, what you think of as biology, what you think of as geology, what you think of as all of the core sciences in their present form didn't even exist prior to this moment. our basic scientific method, our scientific progress, our technological progress have accelerated in the last, and are continuing to accelerate in the last 400 or 500 years, such that what we presently think of ourselves as a species on this planet, science, literature, technology, art, everything across cultures, across all the cultures of the planet, or nearly all, have greatly accelerated in the last 500 years. Now, this accelerated moment has created this functioning democratic republic birth. So we live in, and right in the moment that we're in right now, in one of the most unusual forms of human construction ever devised, a democratic republic, where people are elected to be our leaders, and where we either keep them in office or take them out of office. The people, unencumbered in theory, drive forward this still shaky kind of model of human governance. Now, for this democratic republic to work, going forward, it has had to become more and more and more egalitarian, something that it was much less of at its initiation, except in its conceptualization. And so, for the functioning democratic republic to work, for the functioning democratic republic to ultimately achieve its overall goals, its overall aspirations of equality, of liberty, of justice, of human attainment, the Enlightenment, again, accelerating in its rate. One has to find a way to basically accelerate learning. And so in our democracy, in our democratic republic, many of our founders said that education was essential and learning was essential to the success of the democracy. Now, when they defined that, they meant learning and education. If you go all the way back to John Adams and his authorship of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Constitution in 1780, he talked about there being seminaries of learning, seminaries of science and literature. And what he really meant was Harvard College, where he had gone to school in Cambridge. And so what he couldn't imagine, and what he might have imagined, and what others have imagined, and what others talked about, was this notion of making learning ubiquitous, empowering learning in ways that it wasn't possible to empower before. So thus, now we come to today. We come to this notion where, because of technology, what I call phase 4, because of in the post-2000 era, in the post-dot-com era, in the high-speed internet exchange era, we have our first chance in the history of our species. And I can't understate this. I can't overstate it or understate it. We have the first chance for total egalitarian access to educational outcomes and educational attainment. We've never had this before. We've been limited by, what does a neighborhood look like? What are the resources in a neighborhood look like? What is, how poverty controls the flow of resources related to learning. We've looked at uneven learning outcomes across various aspects of our society in a strange kind of way. We just step back and we either say, well, that's the way it is, because we go back to Plato, and we think that there actually are these 3 different kinds of people, and that every person doesn't have potential at birth, that somehow potential at birth is somehow dramatically different in terms of learning and in terms of outcomes, when it isn't. And so now, in this post-2000 era, in this phase 4, that is, let me just reiterate for a second, we remain in the Stone Age. We're unrequited in our attainment of the ideals of human development at the level that we hope to aspire to achieve, because we're still trying to get out of the Stone Age. The metals and the materials that were developed thousands of years ago, the age of the Enlightenment in phase 3, Plato's ideas of knowledge and learning and outcomes, all these things have come together. And now you all in the technology realm, and we all together in the learning realm, are now melding our assets together in a way in which we have, and I'll say this again, the first chance for total egalitarian access via advanced learning systems. And so let me say what this means then in phase 4. So if this is our first chance, that means that we've got this huge opportunity Change is accelerating, technology is accelerating, opportunity is accelerating, and we should look at this as a moment in time where the arc of history was not curved just towards social justice, which Martin Luther King suggested that we were moving towards, but the arc of history was curved towards social justice and egalitarian access and learning outcomes and human potential maximization, because we found a way to educate everybody. We found a way to educate everybody. So let's walk through then in phase 4, not just where we are, but the second thing. So with advanced artificial or augmented intelligence systems, with autonomous systems, with all the things that you all are helping to build, we have our first chance for the full release of human potential. Think of all of the people who are not able to do what they might be able to do because, in fact, they are being given back-breaking work that physically extracts pain and suffering from their bodies, and they're not fully able to fully realize or capitalize on the total creativity of their completely unique, individualized human mind. What a loss. I mean, what a tremendous loss. So here we are in phase 4, first chance for egalitarian access and the first chance for the full release of human potential. So for us to be able to move forward in this way, we have to be able to do several things. We have to keep doing several things. If we really want total egalitarian access, and we really want the first chance for the full release of human potential, we've got to do several things. Number one, we've got to accelerate innovation. We think we're moving fast. We're not moving fast. Look at where we are now. Look at our inability to react to the complexity that we are facing in one of the early phases of a globalization impact. We're like completely unprepared, completely unable to attack ignorance at the level that ignorance needs to be attacked. We have insufficient tools to help people to understand complexity. We have insufficient tools for people to understand risk. We have insufficient tools for people to make decisions, to enhance their decisions. Humans are very, very limited without the kinds of technologies that you all work on. We don't have the ability to understand, manipulate, or deal with large numbers. We don't have the ability to understand intergenerational impacts. We don't have the ability to understand exponential numbers or exponential growth. We can't understand it. That's not how we're organized as a biological organism. So we've got to find a way to keep accelerating innovation to enhance our overall potential. Second, we've got to find a way to expand individualized learning. We've been operating for the last 150 or so years in what I call factory learning, industrial learning. Here's your little wooden chair stapled to the little wooden floor with the teacher with the whiteboard or the chalkboard up in the front, somehow parroting back to you a series of things that you need to understand so that you can be a better factory worker, so that you can be a better typist. So that, you know, it's an archaic, slow, cumbersome system which has not been individualized to be able to maximize individual learning differentiation, individual creativity. Imagine a world where we weren't all educated the same. We would have infinitely more opportunities, infinitely more solutions, infinitely more pathways to solving some of our problems, preventing some of our problems, and creating new things. So third, we've got to find a way to speed learning up. So right now it's this slow process where everyone, for the most part, is driven into the same traffic speed. So we are all going to go 25 to 30 miles an hour in our learning activity. Oh, don't think that you want to take, 3 majors or 4 majors. There's long ago when I was a college freshman showing up, I show up in front of this lady in 1973 who's sitting at a table, and I say, I'd like to major in 5 things, and she laughs at me. She just completely laughs at me. You can't major in 5 things. Nobody can do that. Well, I'm like, well, why not? This is like almost 50 years ago. And my hope is that sometime, within the next few decades, some kid would walk into college and say, well, I'd like to major in art. I'd like to major in history. I'd like to major in chemistry. I'd like to study some linguistics, and I'd like to understand everything there is to understand about movies. That's what I want to study. And the person sitting at the other end of the table would say, no problem. We've got these individual pathways for you, these group learning pathways for you. We've got this whole way we've assessed your learning. We have a pathway for you. We have these technological tools. We have these tutors that are designed for you. You know, we can make all of these things work. And so I think the fourth thing in terms of what we need to keep doing is we have to start working on what I call making learning more universal. What I mean by universal, that is not only universal in the sense of universal suffrage, universal voting, universal learning for everyone, meaning learning for everyone, but not just learning for everyone in terms of making it universal, but universal across the entirety of a person's life. Right now, we think that the learner is the child, the adolescent, the late adolescent, and the early adult. Why do we think that? We're going to be leading lives that are going to be continuing to expand in terms of lifespan and making things happen and so forth. And so from our perspective, from my perspective, you know, the issue is one of making learning universal using technology throughout the entirety of a person's life. So let's walk through these four things again. We've got to find a way to keep, and we've got to find a way to accelerate innovation related to learning and all things associated with learning. You know, this is the question here for today is how do we shape a more equitable future for learning? Well, we've got to accelerate innovation. If we think that we're doing well, okay, so what? You were doing well today or yesterday, we've got to do better tomorrow. Second, we've got to expand individualized learning. Third, we've got to speed learning. We've got to intensify learning. And fourth, we've got to make learning universal. But underlying all of that, we have a fundamental thing that we have to defeat. We have to find a way to leave the Stone Age. We have to find a way to leave the three earlier phases of the Stone Age. The earlier phases of the Stone Age made material objects supremely important. They made learning socially hierarchical and elitist. That was Plato. And they allowed the Enlightenment to advance, but to advance slowly and only for a few. We don't have 500 more years, given all of the complexities that we're facing right now, to have our population not be greatly accelerated or greatly enhanced in terms of learning. And so if I was to say that to the fundamental question that I was asked to address, how do we shape a more equitable future of learning? You all have to become unbelievably, I guess, more empowered, more engaged, not as, and you aren't, and, you know, working with Lev and with Samantha and others, and John, some of the others I see on here that I work with, Chris, you know, the technology side of things can't be just the tool. It's the tool, the means, the mechanisms. We've got to find a way to bring all of this together, where technology and technology support is not just the mechanism, but it's the actual empowerment, the actual creativity. Lev and I and some others are working on some projects right now that I hope are going to be unbelievably powerful and transformative in terms of achieving all these goals and achieving all these objectives. So you may not have wanted to wake up so early in the morning for somewhat of a philosophy lesson, but I think that it's important that you philosophically understand where we are, where you are, that we're at this final phase of crawling out of the Stone Age. Now we're suffering right now at the moment because the Stone Age drag is still on us. The Stone Age drag is still on us. We didn't have a way to learn quickly, to adjust. We didn't have a way to adapt quickly. We don't have tools that can help people to understand science at the level that they need to understand science. We still have all kinds of scientifically illiterate people running around, even in important positions. And so you know, this is like almost unbelievable. How can this be the case in 2020? So let's mark 2020 as the moment that you all realize that you're the replacers of Plato. This notion of elitist learning and elitist structures can be defeated by the technologies that you're advancing. The notion of social justice can be greatly enhanced by more equitable distribution of learning outcomes. Social mobility, social transformation are all empowerable by you all. And so that's probably as far as I want to take this morning. I don't know if you guys are asking questions or what, but that's 23 minutes and 25 seconds. So a little bit longer than I wanted to talk, because I wanted to see if anybody had anything to say about what I had to say. So Samantha, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you so much for such a thought-provoking keynote to kick us off today. My head is absolutely spinning, and I'm sure the same could be said for the panelists who have to who are going to be following that up with some thoughts of their own. I'm going to take a second just to scan the chat here and see if there are any questions for President Crow. Of course, as always, continue to write your questions in the chat. Quick question. What do you, just coming from actually the Twitterverse, what is your biggest recommendation for removing or eradicating the often siloed nature that we face in education? Just a light question to start us off this morning.
You know, so I've been working hard at that. When I was at Columbia University, I was the designer and architect of the Earth Institute. And I did that because the geologists weren't working with the public health people, weren't working with the engineers, weren't working with others. And then at ASU, we've done a lot of this also. And so the key is to just not accept it, not accept the silo, undermine the silo at all opportunities, take out little bricks so that it eventually just falls over. Don't keep funding the silos only. Fund things around the silos, make things happen. You all are powerful developers of tools that can help break silos down, because you can help facilitate the communication across disciplines and so forth. So the notion is, even in the ASU design aspirations, we have one of the design aspirations is related to driving forward intellectual fusion. So you drive, and the word fusion was picked on purpose. Massive nuclear reactions that are occurring in an unbelievably powerful way, and you do that by just not accepting the silos, by constantly looking in positive ways for connections, for linkages, for tools, for mechanisms. Because one of the big things that we have right now, as you can see in this public health crisis we have right now, is that disciplines aren't talking well to each other. They don't speak well across each other. We don't have any idea what's going on because we don't have these tools. So one thing you all can do is build some of these tools, build mechanisms that allow for translation. Our decision theater is an early version, sort of, stone axe, that's useful in that particular arena. So I think, Samantha, that's one of the things that can be done in terms of silos, is just attack them.
I think we have time for one more question. Thank you so much, President Crow. So if we eradicate these silos, if we get it right, what does education look like in 5 years?
In 5 years, 5 years is essentially tomorrow, except things are accelerating. What I'm hopeful is that a way for me to describe this is to describe ASU in 5 years. So ASU would be an educational learning enterprise, a teaching, learning, and discovery enterprise is what we call it, capable of projecting out its learning assets, projecting out its learning environment to any learner, anywhere, anytime, any scale, any culture. Within the university itself would be the notion of, and imagine if many major universities and colleges could do that. Imagine those assets then transformatively operating around the planet. A second thing relative to the ASU of 5 years from now is that a student can move through the university completely at their own speed. You're like really quick, you don't have much time, you need to get out of here in 2.5 years, no problem. Or you could be, a weirdo like me, and you show up as a 17 or 18-year-old freshman, and you can actually take 5 majors. And it would be like no sweat. You'd have to go, 11, 12 months a year, but you could get it done. The other thing going forward is that we found a way to contain and constrain the costs so that it continues to be affordable. Affordability is unbelievably important, and we need technology for those purposes. The other thing that we need is we absolutely must eliminate this notion that there are people that get math and science and people that don't. The people that don't get math and science are running around not wearing masks right now. They just don't get it. And how could they get it? Because it's really complicated. And so we have to find a way to defeat the notion of math and science not being a ubiquitously taught thing, not the same as reading. So you should understand reading, you should understand all these things, and you should understand some level of math and science. And so, Samantha, those are some things that I think are attainable only just a few, but within 5 years.
I think so too. And I actually think this is the community to get all of that done. So I want to thank you so much for your time and your insights, for speaking with us this morning around the flagpole. Thank you so much for setting the tone for what is going to be a week-long series of activities that get us closer to that 5-year dream. Thank you so much.
By the way, I worked at a summer camp for 5 years as a counselor.
Well, tell us a story if you've got some time.
Every morning was flagpole, but the worst thing was we had to go to these younger Boy Scouts patrol cookouts once every week on Thursdays, where I learned to eat chicken that was not fully cooked. And so I just got used to, if the blood was rolling down the plate, you knew that the chicken, you should probably only take a small bite because you weren't quite sure what was going to happen. Now, the boys, the 12-year-olds, they thought it was beautiful, but the chicken was completely uncooked. And so there were many, many, many things, many flagpole moments. We had flagpole twice a day, flagpole in the morning, flagpole in the evening, and everyone assembled both times. And so many, many, many opportunities to be at the flagpole. So it's nice to be at the flagpole with you all. And I hope that my chosen trajectory for this talk was not too disturbing. I'm looking at Lev, I can't tell.
This is the right crowd for weird, for disturbing, and strange. So you got it right. Thank you for sharing your scary story with us, that you lived to tell the story after eating not thoroughly cooked chicken. That is definitely one for the books.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that was just amazing. And I got to gather myself before I even introduce our next presenter here. Really, really powerful. I also just wanted to say before I introduce the next set of speakers, there's a few questions that were popping up for Dr. Crow and just in general in the chat about the COVID response. Right after this flagpole, there's actually an interview session happening with Jeff Young from EdSearch. We'll be interviewing folks around the pandemic. So if you are interested in all things COVID-19 and the impact on education in the coming school year, you're going to want to make sure to attend that EdSearch session. Next, it is my great honor to present a really dear friend of the Shaping EDU, LearningMan, and ASU community. Representing Workday, Robert Steele, Workday Vice President of Higher Education, is going to kick off a special panel here today around the flagpole. Over to you, Robert.
All right. Good morning. Can you hear me okay? All right, wonderful. Well, good morning, campers, and President Crow can't say thanks enough for his words this morning. I could say as a first generation college student myself, the words are particularly impactful and ring true at this moment that we all face right now. And I could tell you that, again, my name is Robert Steele, the Vice President for Higher Education here at Workday, and on behalf of our entire higher education customer family, of which Arizona State University, our gracious hosts, are a part, and our thousands of customers around the world, Workday is honored to help sponsor the keynote and part of the proceedings this week at Learning Human 2020. Reason is pretty simple. We share in the values of this virtual camp experience, specifically pushing the envelope, if you will, on how we best serve institutional and student success moving forward. So it's our hope that you're not just going to leave this keynote and the sessions this week better informed. As some of my favorite leaders at my company say, that's great, but what are you going to do about it? We hope that you have an inspired call to action. I think President Crow is right on the money, that this isn't just a set of circumstances we face today. This is a moment in history, and history, it demands of us, for those of us that care about this industry and its future, history demands of us action in this moment. And this essential facet of the shared human experience, which is higher education. Put more simply, look in the mirror, you're the person you've been waiting for, or as we say on my team, no one's coming, it's up to us. So I hope everyone shares in that sentiment. And there's no better way to kick off this week, really to hear from three distinguished leaders in higher education that are going to help share some of their stories from the front lines today. So I'm pleased to introduce to you three leaders. Jenny Ricard, the CEO of the Common App, joining us from Washington, D.C. And two of my friends and proud to say customers of ours at Workday, President Ava Partner, president of Palm Beach State College in Palm Beach County, Florida, and my friend Dr. Irma Becerra, president of Marymount University in Arlington, Virginia, and suburban Washington, D.C. So leaders, welcome to you all. Thank you for joining us on our panel this morning. Let's get right to it. And Jenny, let's start with you. We just heard Dr. Crow talk about access. Ironically, the organization that you lead, the Common App, was founded specifically for that purpose, access, broader access. Yet we are quizzically at a time when access seems to be as restricted as ever. What are some of the changes that you see as necessary as we currently evolve?
Great. Well, thanks so much, Rob. It is really a pleasure and an honor to be here. So thanks so much for the invitation. Listening to President Crow and talking about the Stone Age and thinking about universal access made me think about going back 45 years ago when an enterprising group of college admission counselors and admission deans wanted to leverage the latest technology of the time, the photocopier, to really transform the college admissions process. Students were starting to apply to more colleges, and the counselors saw that process was creating barriers. So they came up with the idea of creating a common application form. The idea that a student could just fill out a form once and then send it to the different institutions that they were interested in. And fast forward, they started with 15 colleges, fast forward 45 years, and now Common App is a nonprofit membership association committed to access, equity, and integrity in the college admissions process. And we now have over 900 college and university members, public and private, including Arizona State. And to that end, we now have more than 1 million students, 1/3 of whom are first-generation college students who use the Common App every year to apply to college. And our focus is very much on those first-generation college students. We're also now home to Reach Higher, which is the college access initiative created by former First Lady Michelle Obama during her time in the White House to inspire a college-going culture. And together, our organization is trying to inspire that college-going culture by eliminating the social barriers that prevent a student from even thinking about applying to college. And then once they do decide to apply, reducing the barriers to get them actually through that process. And when I reflect on the past 45 years and how that technology has changed, from the photocopier to today, we're in the cloud. When you take a look at the admission process as a whole, it really has not fundamentally changed. That was what was striking me listening to President Crow talking about the Stone Age, is that technology's changed, but the process hasn't. And when you look at a PDF of the application form from 1975 and compare it to one from 2020, they are remarkably similar. So clearly, as President Crow was saying, we are long overdue to remove the systemic barriers to access that have really become embedded in the admission system writ large. At Common App, some of the things that we're looking at have been accelerated by both COVID-19 and the Black Lives Matter movement, because it's urgent that we really reduce the barriers and create a much more equity of access to higher education. So we're working on some things to change the current system that I'll share with you that include ensuring inclusion, addressing affordability, expanding our student reach, and leveraging our technology to actually provide interventions to students to help them get through the process. But we also are starting a process to reimagine the whole system. And that's, to start fresh. And that's something that we would love to learn more from everybody here about how we might be able to do that together. But to give you a sense of some of the inequities that currently exist in the current system that I think we're all more than familiar with, in terms of ensuring inclusion, we're in the process of reviewing questions on the application that could potentially be barriers for students applying to college, ranging from citizenship, gender identity, school discipline, and more. And just to give some insight into the inequities related to school discipline, Black students, who make up 16% of enrollment, have accounted for 40% of suspensions nationally. And Black and Latinx students are more likely to be disciplined for minor misbehavior than white peers. So it's really urgent for us to be taking a look at these questions that disadvantage students in the process and have done so for years. In terms of addressing affordability, as President Crow said, that's fundamental for all of us, is to make education much more accessible and affordable. We're focused right now on a project to reduce friction in what is the $6 billion private scholarship market. A colleague of mine at Common App describes the scholarship market as a two-way treasure hunt, where you have hundreds, thousands of scholarship providers actively seeking students for their scholarships to meet particular criteria that they might have. And you have students actively searching for dollars to help them go to college, but they never quite match up with one another. And when they do, the scholarships tend to be skewed toward white, high-income students. To give some data, Caucasian students are 40% more likely to win private scholarships than minority students. And students in the top quartile of family income are on average 130% more likely than students in the bottom quartile to receive scholarship dollars. So we're excited to have some grant funding to explore how we can help close the racial and income equity gaps that exist, and are working with a national scholarship aggregator on a pilot this fall to match students more equitably to scholarships. In terms of expanding our reach, Common App has long served the 4-year college market, and nearly 40% of undergraduates go to community college. So in terms of our equity mission, we want to be able to serve all students in terms of wherever they might want to be going to college, and help them navigate that process. We've had some grant funding to take a look at how we might be able to support community colleges, because although our membership criteria enables us to have community colleges be members, our solutions haven't necessarily met their needs. So we're excited about a couple of possibilities to be a point of contact to community colleges for students, so they can see the full range of 2- and 4-year options, as well as the idea of a common transfer guarantee, so students could go to one place to find out how their credits might transfer, because credit transfer, I think, as we all know, and transfer is the biggest barrier for students. So we're working to streamline pathways for students, and excited to work with community colleges. And then the last effort that we've been working on related to the current system is really leveraging our platform to provide interventions to students to help them get through the process successfully. In March, when COVID-19 hit, we were really worried about the students who had already applied to college, who were now facing different decisions about where they should go to college, how to navigate their financial aid, what were their family situations going to be in order to help them afford going to college. And we were worried that a lot of the vulnerable students who've applied don't necessarily have college counselors or have resources at home to help them do that. So we quickly partnered with our friends at AdmitHub and the College Advising Corps to launch a text messaging campaign to connect about 200,000 of what we saw as the most vulnerable students in our system with a chatbot that could answer top-level questions. And then if the chatbot couldn't answer the question, connect them to an actual human being at College Advising Corps who could help them address whatever issue it was that they were facing. We were incredibly gratified that nearly 40% of students responded to that effort. And we're excited to have grant funding to continue working with those same students throughout the summer and into the first semester of their senior year to prevent summer melt and help them succeed. So those are just 4 areas in the current system, and there are many more that are barriers for students that we're trying to address and trying to provide support to students. But again, that there are changes in the current system, and we really need to reimagine the system as a whole and think differently about it. And so we're very excited to work with our members and others and partners and all of you to do so. COVID-19 has shown us that higher ed can move much more quickly than we ever imagined. And the Black Lives Matter movement has certainly underscored the urgency that we must all feel in making those changes. So we very much look forward to working with you, and we cannot throw away our shot on this. So that just gives you a sense of some of the things that Common App is addressing and thinking about, as we really desperately need to move from the Stone Age to today, and leverage technology to make access ubiquitous for all students. So thanks, Rob.
No, indeed, Jenny, thank you so much. And I think it's a perfect pivot point to engage some of the campus leaders that we have here on the panel. And President Parker, I think it's a natural transition to you with regards to, we're talking about access, but one thing that is rapidly evolving, something that's on the minds of everybody, it's something you can't avoid a day without reading about, is the changing value proposition as well of higher education. So, as a campus leader yourself at a traditionally 2-year institution at Palm Beach State, you talk to us a little bit about what you see as the mandate for change, what you must do on your campus, and the very value proposition of what campuses like yourself and others provide right now.
I'm sure. Thanks, Rob. We certainly appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with you all this morning. I certainly, too, was inspired by Dr. Crow's message and the idea that we have to think differently about how we're going to proceed if we're going to be this institution that we say we're going to be, and if we're going to make the kind of differences that we need to make throughout the country, and particularly in the lives of our students. And certainly, Jenny, I appreciate your sensitivity to the idea that that we have to realize that all questions aren't equal, and that we have to sensitize ourselves to how those questions impact the results that we ultimately receive. And certainly, I appreciate your commitment to working with community colleges and understanding the role that we play in this process. So I'm personally really interested in continuing conversation with you about how we can work together. I told Rob earlier that I really enjoy the opportunity to talk to academicians. That is, whether you're faculty, whether you're staff, whether you're an administrator. I really love this opportunity to spend time with you, because if you're in this business, you're doing this because you love it. This is not a business that you choose because you think you're going to get rich. This is a business that you choose because you love the subject matter in which you work in, and you also really appreciate the difference that we make in the lives of our students. So whether you're at a community college or state college or at a university, and whether, again, you're like staff or faculty or administrators, if you have chosen to be in this business, that means that you really have grown to love what you do. And when I think about us, particularly at Palm Beach State College, because as faculty here, we certainly have folks who see themselves as master teachers, but even in any role that you might play, what always keeps our work interesting is that we have new students coming in. So it is that whether you're dealing with the same subject matter, or whether you're given an opportunity to talk about or discover, some different technique or research a different area, still your life is infused by this wonderful idea that we have bright minds that come in all the time and make it interesting. And I should say to you just a moment that at Palm Beach State College, yes, we are traditionally a 2-year institution. We started over years ago as the first public junior college in Florida. And now we actually offer AA degrees as well as bachelor's degrees, but really all very much focused on workforce for our 50,000 plus students and our 5 different campuses throughout the county. What's interesting to me is that as President Crow talked about access, we are in fact an open access institution, and that we are willing to have you come in and we will accept you where you are and give you an opportunity to achieve whatever your goals might be. What's fascinating about that to me is that our secret sauce has been, we have small classes, we have master teachers, and we have this ability to wrap our arms around students. So it's not just about your academic experience. It is, we feel we have a responsibility to also impact whatever social issues or life issues you may be going through, because it all impacts your success. A large part of our population are first generation students. And they certainly are so excited about the opportunity to come in and actually change their lives. And they're depending upon us to give them that great step up, often into the middle class. So certainly I can appreciate the vision that President Crow has for the work that many of you are doing already there at ASU. What I say to you, and what I really hope you think about during this week, while you're at camp, is that as academicians, we all should be petrified right now. I think that we should really be, paranoid about what's going on around us. And I would say almost just downright scared, just based upon what's happening in our industry right now. And what I want to say to you is that, we go through these different strategic planning exercises and we go through this SWOT analysis. And a lot of times we talk about threats. And I want to talk a little bit about the threats that I see that are currently really impacting the way that we are going to have to do our business moving forward if we're going to be successful. And so one thing I'd say to you is when we talk about threats, the first thing I want you to think about is that, private industry is engaging in training as we speak. That is that if you think about Google and you think about Amazon, and they're not waiting on our graduates. Remember, President Crow just talked about we need to allow people to go through quickly. So major industries now, they have found ways to ensure they can train their teams faster, and they're encouraging folks to come in and go right with them and skip us, skip this grand tradition that we have. Think about McDonald's, it has Hamburger University, or think about Disney, there's also Disney University. And what they've done, they've even adopted our nomenclature and this whole idea. They have campuses, they have universities, and they have faculty that they're employing to do this training and stealing the people that we traditionally serve. And so when we think about what is that unique proposition that we offer, often it's the traditions that you gain by engaging in a culture on a college or university campus. But what I'd say to you is they also are taking that. In fact, at Disney University, one of the very first classes they offer is in traditions, because they want their teams to be aware of the traditions and mores that they've established at Disney World. So what I'd say to you is that we have to start paying attention to what our unique proposition is if we're going to be successful and continue to do this business that we love, and recognize that the threats are not some of the common threats that we're accustomed to. And the second threat I talked to you about is one that we kind of always think about, but I don't know if we actually take it seriously, and that is the threat of funding. So many of us work at public institutions, and you understand that those dollars that we are so accustomed to receiving, I think that they are really dwindling. And I think that we all are living in an environment where people are saying that families are hurting and they're not going to encourage raising tuition. So we're going to try to find ways to get things done. And what I want to say to you, particularly as university practitioners, we understand that states fund universities because universities are the research and development arms of our, of our economy. But I'm telling you that as money becomes unavailable, they're not going to be able to invest in that. So we're going to try to find ways to ensure that we remain relevant. And certainly at public colleges like mine, we are the economic engines for our communities. And so we have to, again, try to find ways to remain relevant and find other funding sources or find ways to do it cheaper and faster, because again, our funding is at risk. And so what I'd say to you is that you're going to have to watch those things, because again, another thing we should be afraid about is enrollment, because we're not quite sure what's going to happen post-pandemic and the way folks are feeling about the way that we are providing opportunities. So I just want to share with you in closing just a couple of solutions that I think that we have to keep in mind as we're dealing with these threats to our industry. And that is that you have to first realize that we have to develop a real value proposition for why it's still unique and valuable to engage in institutions like ours. And I'm hoping those ideas will be generated during the conversations this week at camp. I think we have to strengthen partnerships with those who are currently working with us. That is, I think about how valuable our Workday partnership is right now with the college, and how I can sit down and think and talk with this industry leader and say, here are some of the things that are like threatening how we do business, and we need to strengthen that relationship in order for us to be successful. I can say right now, we're working with Workday on how we're going to deal with that symptom checker app as we start to bring people back to campus. And then finally, what I'd say to you is that it really depends upon you and your mindset. If you are so comfortable to believe that things are going to stay the same, unfortunately, you will be left behind. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, President Parker. Thank you so much. And, President Becerra, I think this, it's a perfect transition to you, because this is something I know you feel passionate about. We've heard about access. We've heard about how we should be realistic. I think I saw in the chat, real talk about what we face here right now. But, you and I have talked about this one-on-one, which is, it's got to be about more than just the practical training, that what we do in higher education makes a meaningful difference. And I know something you feel passionate about. Talk to us a little bit about that kind of campus experience that you've been leading at Marymount.
Thank you, Rob. And again, thanks to Rob and to Workday for inviting me to this great panel. I'm delighted to join Jenny Rickard, President Parker, and of course, President Crow for a wonderful morning. I wanted to take you briefly through this journey. It feels like it's been years, but it's only about 4 months since we started experiencing something that has had such a huge impact, the whole COVID, not only on our universities, but of course in our daily lives. I remember we started preparing for COVID back in January. What I thought was sort of like an academic exercise, just like we prepare for snow days and active shooters. And for those of you that don't know about me, my journey, before I moved to Virginia, I had served as provost and chief academic officer at St. Thomas University in Miami Gardens, Florida. So I had met you before, President Parker. We're both Floridians. And prior to that, I served in a variety of positions at Florida International University, including vice president, vice provost, and Intrapreneurship Center director. So having those experiences in the Sunshine State, I was accustomed to dealing with disasters and emergencies related to hurricanes and other weather events. So when we first started talking about this coronavirus, I said, no worries, we got this, been through a number of hurricanes. This is going to be just like another hurricane, when in fact, it's been like a hurricane that is still hovering over us and it still hasn't left us, and essentially. We know that this virus not only will change higher education, but it's going to change our lives. As we saw the number of COVID cases exponentially increase back in March, we pivoted nearly 700 courses in total to remote delivery. If somebody would have asked me, can you shift a very traditional, primarily face-to-face education university into remote education, I would have said probably not. Not only remote learning, but also remote operating. But thanks to the flexibility and agility of our faculty and staff, thankfully we're 1/3 of our way through our Workday implementation, so we could run parts of the university using our cloud-based system. But it really was monumental, the effort to move the university to remote learning and remote operation. When we asked our students, how did we do? They said to us, thank you, we are very understanding and grateful that we needed to switch to remote learning. But while this worked for us on a temporary basis, we miss in person, we miss our face-to-face instruction, what Marymount is known for. And Marymount is known for this unique approach of educating our next generation of leaders, and it's really centered around small classes and an intimate classroom experience that meets the educational needs of our students. That's why our saints attend Marymount, and that's why we are the institutional choice. So while they appreciated that through pivoting to remote education, we were able to really graduate more than 1,000 students in the spring, they essentially told us it's not working for me. So what this experience proved to me is that there is something that is not happening when we move to fully virtual in terms of the education that our students are looking for, because so much learning takes place around other people, being physically embedded in a learning environment. Even though we've made incredible advances over the last decade when it comes to online learning and virtual education, it is not quite for our students the in-person model that they are used to when they come to Marymount. It has been a valuable lesson for us to learn, because for years I would hear people predicting that the university as we know it will cease to exist. And what the COVID experience has shown us is that there is a lot of value in terms of the experience that we provide our students today. And when I say that, I'm going to draw my experience as a knowledge management researcher, which was my specialty before I moved into higher ed administration. When students are in a physical academic environment, they can truly absorb what the professor is saying. They engage with each other, they apply what they're learning through collaborative experiences, and so much knowledge exchange in this scenario that is hard to replicate in a completely virtual environment. You can replace the lecture aspect of the class with students listening on their computers to lectures that were previously recorded, but is not equal to what students can get in person. The knowledge exchange between students interacting with each other, being exposed to students of different types of backgrounds and cultures that come from all over the world, being involved in various on campus activities, experimenting with taking on leadership roles, finding out what their true passion in life is. That is what education is all about. So the engagement with students is what we are after. And in my opinion, even online center education will need to shift post-COVID, because many of our students, even at the graduate level, said that the temporary remote delivery format lacked the engagement opportunities that they wanted to receive from the Marymount education. So as leaders in higher education, we need to think less massive and more personalized. Maybe some students will be at a place in their lives where the online option is preferable, or maybe a mix between the two. We should not be thinking about offering just a generic one size fits all approach. We should be thinking along the lines of this high flex mode of delivery, hybrid, flexible, customized for every student's preferred learning style, and one in which they can build in their own careers in a personalized way. The crux of the issue is, of course, how do we offer this and still offer it at an affordable and accessible cost for all? So some of the things that President Crow and President Parker were talking about is how do we really rethink our education for students that are coming in and out of education at all times of their life, of their journey for learning. So at Marymount, we are building these ramps for in and out of education for students of all ages, whether they are the traditional college age or further down the line. For instance, in the middle of this pandemic, we recognizing the sizable number of people who had lost their jobs and had been furloughed, we launched a new program called Upskilling for the What's Next economy, and it encompasses a unique and comprehensive range of modular graduate certificates and degree qualifications that provide students with technical, management, entrepreneurial, and leadership skills to get them back to work. We also, last fall, we launched an initiative to address one of the most significant talent gaps in the greater Washington region, which is a shortage of graduates that are prepared with entrepreneurial skills to help employers grow and meet the challenges of an ever growing world. So this is called the Marymount Intrapreneurship Initiative, and is aimed at students who often feel left out from entrepreneurial programs because they want to use their entrepreneurial spirit and skills in existing organizations or in government organizations rather than for starting their own businesses. And also in the last year, we created a new set of graduate stackable certificates in areas that include cybersecurity, data science, digital health, digital transformation, leadership, project management, entrepreneurship. And these stackable certificates can combine into a master's degree in emerging technology, which gives students the tools that they need to seize the opportunity that the market currently provides. It's sort of what President Crow was saying when someone wanted to have 3 or 4 different majors, where here we allow them to have them 3 or 4 different majors and put them into one master's degree. So students can earn these certificates slowly, one at a time, multiple certificates at a time. So this whole idea of building your own degree at an affordable manner is something that we're being really very focused on at Marymount. We also recognize that there are students that maybe came to school, they got maybe a traditional degree, maybe in geography, and then now they want to switch to another new career like cybersecurity or nursing. So we have a way where students can come back and spend a complete year in a completely immersed way and completely change a path from a geology degree to a cybersecurity or nursing degree. So this is for us the beginning, because we need to always continue to find ways to increase access and personalization in education. And I think it is the future, and I believe that we will see it even more in the aftermath of the COVID pandemic. So, and I think really is the answer to some of the things that President Crow was talking about, the fusion of disciplines, being able to move at your own speed, keeping in mind that education needs to be affordable, so it's accessible to everybody, and also embedding math, science, and artificial intelligence in everything we learn, because certainly that is the future of our disciplines.
All right. Well, I think we're going to leave it there. I just want to say on behalf of Workday, thank you, Dr. Becerra, President Parker, Jenny Ricard, thank you so much for sharing your insights here this morning. We hope through these very simple lenses on the back of President Crow's presentation, access, the very value proposition of this industry we care so much about, and how we deliver quality and affordable education and upskill those individuals who work in this world to better serve our students in whatever form and meet them wherever they are. I think these are themes that'll resonate throughout the week. So thank you to Arizona State University for hosting, and step back over to you folks. Everyone enjoy your camp experience this week at Learning Human 2020. We'll see you out there around the campfire.
Yay. Thank you so much, Robert. Thank you so much to just an excellent and insightful panel. This was the most vibrant and thought-provoking start to an education technology conference that I could remember. That's why it's camp. So thank you so much for spending your time with us this morning, or if you happen to be on the other side of the world this evening, we're so grateful you're here. We've just posted in the chat, in the Slack, and pretty much everywhere else, the next lineup of breakout sessions. We have the first set starting at 9:15 a.m. Pacific time. That's actually 12 p.m. or 12:15 p.m. on the East Coast US time. And then there will be another breakout session just after that, starting at 10:15 a.m. Pacific time, 1:15 p.m. East Coast time in the US. So we're really looking forward to seeing you at those next sessions. Erin, Laura, anything else that we should know before we journey out?
I'll stay in this room in case anyone has questions or needs anything. I'll be here until about 11 once all the sessions are over, and then we'll have a new session starting right at 11 in this room with, I believe, Brandon Kuchowski at 11:30. I'm sorry, not 11, just kidding. So make sure you come back and visit with us then.
Yeah, and there are several ways to engage. You can, and the link I just shared, you can get to us by clicking the Zoom link. You could click to us ASU Live, that's streaming, or some of the sessions are being hosted in Verbella, our immersive platform. So whether you're in 2D or 3D, we look forward to seeing you. Thank you.